Kathy asks, the guy at the tire store told me that I should be replacing all my tires and that I cannot replace just two. So is he trying to rip me off? By the way, I drive a Subaru, if that makes a difference at all. Well, Kathy, that's a good question, and we're going to answer it today as part of the Beginner's Guide to Tire series, which is sponsored by Salem Tire. Why Salem? Because you don't always have to spend a lot to get a decent tire. So for starters, Kathy and everyone else watching, there's always a good, better, and best scenario for every tire question. Now in this case, the situation is just a little bit different because Kathy drives a Subaru. Now we're not picking on Subaru, but there's a reason why that makes a difference, and I'll explain why in just a minute. So let's begin by looking at the best case scenario. So in a perfect world where money is no object, your best option is to replace all four tires at the same time. That way you can be sure that the traction at each of the four tires will always be the same. Now ideally all four tires should be the same brand. They should be the same tire within the brand. They should have the same speed rating and the same load index. That's the best way to assure that your vehicle performs the way you expect it to, that it handles the way you expect it to, and that you can maintain the best possible control of your vehicle, especially when dealing with emergency maneuvers, maybe on the highway, or maybe you're driving on wet pavement or snow-covered roads. Your next best option would be to replace just two tires rather than all four. Now, if that's the case, then again, you'll want to make sure that the two new tires are the same brand and the same model as the ones that you're going to pair them with. If that's not possible for whatever reason, at least make sure that they have the same speed rating, that they have the same load index. And under no circumstances would you ever want to mix tire types. In other words, you wouldn't want to have two winter tires and two all-season tires, or two all-season tires and two summer tires, or two winter tires and two summer. That's just a recipe for disaster. Now, if you're installing only two new tires, you might be thinking, you know what, I'm going to put those two new tires on the front of my vehicle, on the front axle, because I drive a front-wheel drive vehicle. So it just makes sense to put the new tires on my drive axle, right? Well, that sounds logical, but counterintuitively, the opposite is actually true. The new tires, the tires with the better traction, should really go at the rear of the vehicle. Now, how does that make sense, you ask? Well, the answer in a word, the word of the day, is oversteer. That's right, oversteer. If you're not familiar with the term, oversteer is when you're turning the steering wheel as you go around a corner, or maybe you're making an emergency maneuver on the highway, and the rear of the vehicle now swings out to the side because there's not enough traction there. Now, why is there not enough traction at the rear? Well, in this particular case, it's because you put the better tires on the front axle, so they have better traction. The old tires with worse traction are on the rear, so they're slipping out. Now, if you're into drifting, oversteer is not a problem. Oversteer is your friend. But if you're into surviving the morning commute to work, or the trip to the grocery store when it's raining or snowing or there's ice on the road, then oversteer is definitely not your friend. Now, to be frank, if you live in the desert where the roads are always bone dry, then oversteer isn't as big a concern for you as it is for those of us who live in areas where we get rain or we get snow or we get ice sometimes. That's when you're most likely to have to deal with oversteer. Now, I know what you're thinking. Okay, I put the better tires now on the rear axle. Well, that just leaves the ones with less traction on the front axle. And isn't that going to result in those wheels slipping as well? Yeah, it is, and that's why we want four new tires. But in this case, when your front wheels lose traction and refuse to go in the direction that you're actually steering, that's known as understeer. However, with understeer, you tend to have just a tad more control of the vehicle. That's because you're more likely to notice the understeer earlier in the turn, which will give you just a little bit more time to reduce your speed and adjust your steering input. In an oversteer situation, it's more difficult. It's more difficult to control, and it tends to kind of sneak up on you. Sometimes you don't realize that the rear end has started slipping out from underneath you until you're facing the wrong way in traffic. Now, there's another reason why you might have to swap out all 4 tires. In other words, swapping out just 2 tires may not be an option at all for you. Now, Kathy explained that she drives a Subaru, and most Subarus are all-wheel drive. If I remember correctly, I think the only rear-wheel drive vehicle in the Subaru lineup is the BRZ. All other Subarus are all-wheel drive. So what's the problem with all-wheel drive? Well, in short, for the all-wheel drive system to work properly and in order to prevent damage to the differential, all 4 tires must be very close in circumference. If they're not, then the all-wheel drive system will be stressed. Now, what does that mean in plain English? This means that the tread depth on all 4 tires must be within a certain tolerance. And I believe that for Subarus, it's 2 30-seconds. So in other words, let's say you're measuring the depth of the tread on your old tires, and let's say they're at 4 30-seconds. But the new tires you're putting on, they're at 11 30-seconds. If I got the math correct, I think that's a difference of 7 30-seconds, which is too much of a difference for the all-wheel drive system on a Subaru to handle without undue stress. With this much of a difference, the front axle and the rear axle will be spinning at different speeds, and that difference in speed is just too big for the all-wheel drive system to handle. Now, unfortunately, Kathy, this means, yeah, you might have to buy 4 new tires after all. The guy at the store may not be trying to rip you off. He may be right. Now, again, I'm not picking on Subaru, and quite frankly, they're not the only vehicle manufacturer with all-wheel drive systems that require a specific tread depth tolerance. If you drive any all-wheel drive vehicle from whichever manufacturer, whichever brand, check your owner's manual, Google it, or contact the service department at your local dealership and ask them what the tread depth tolerance is for your vehicle and for the particular tire size that you have. Getting back to our sponsor, Salem Tire, if the idea of taking out a mortgage to buy 4 new tires or even 2 new tires makes you sick to your stomach, you're not alone. So why not take a closer look at what Salem Tire has to offer? Why Salem? Again, because you don't always have to spend a lot to get a decent tire. Earlier on, we talked about the importance of getting new tires with the same speed rating. Now, if you're not sure what that means or why that's important, please check out the video here. As always, thanks for watching.